Good evening, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and call the planning and zoning meeting to order. Today is Tuesday. Oh wait, I'm in the wrong one. Today is Tuesday, July 18th, and it is 6:30 p.m. We've already had a call to order, silent meditation. Madam Clerk, may I please have roll call?
Mayor Cubillos.
Here.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Here.
Councilperson Mathis is not here. Councilperson Bourbon.
Present.
Councilperson Roman.
Here.
Also present for the record, Janice Jacoby, Village Clerk, Interim Village Attorney Norman Powell, Village Manager Cristia Lu, and Juan from Puerto Rico and Camilo.
Give me 1 second, because I brought with me, I brought with me the agenda from the original date of this meeting. Okay, yeah, that's what I was looking for. Okay, I want to see, there's no minutes to approve, right? Okay, may I get a motion to approve? May I get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion to approve.
I'll second the motion to approve the agenda.
Our motion's been made by Councilperson Roman, second by Vice Mayor Nickerson. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none. Their meeting for the planning and zoning for May was canceled, so we're going to strike that. There are no minutes. With that said, we're going to go right into the first agenda item, which is the site plan review for 8780 Northeast 2nd Avenue. At this time, if we can have, I just didn't have the right agenda. I have it back. If I have the applicant, or you want the applicant to go first, or come here?
So we'll read the application, then the applicant can present.
Perfect.
And we'll
Got
read
it.
our recommendations after.
Perfect. All right. With that said, Camila, that's all yours. Please state your name and the name of the company for the record.
Camila Sala, the Serbia Design, 1385 Broadway. This application is for site plan review of 8780 Northeast 2nd Avenue. The applicant is requesting a site plan approval for the proposed addition and conversion of the existing structure from a residential use to a commercial establishment, which pursuant to section 17-53 of the Code of Ordinances requires approval by Village Council after public hearing.
It's all yours. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening. Mayor, members of the council. Ben Fernandez, 200 South Biscayne Boulevard, here tonight on behalf of the property owner, Ms. Marcella Siegel. And if I may approach, Mayor, I just want to have a little handout for all of you to look at while I'm speaking. Oh, sorry, you know what, I'm sorry, it's a little bit redundant. One of them is an image that you have before you. So you can look at these boards as well. But as Camila mentioned, this is an application for a site plan approval. It originally began as an application for, we thought, a variance, and I think that thanks to work with your professional staff and your planner, we were able to make changes to ensure that we complied with the parking requirement and that the application was only to obtain a site plan approval. So we're here in a appreciation of staff's efforts. We have a favorable staff recommendation. This property is in your Main Street District, T4. It is the place where the code calls for commercial development and mixed-use development. It's a corner lot. We have an existing multifamily structure on it. And the proposal tonight is to allow a yoga studio with some mixed use in it as well, mixed use offices for primarily art, and physical improvement sorts of endeavors, spiritual healing. The idea is to have a very natural complex, and we don't expect that there will be any large attendance at any one of these meetings because it's supposed to be sort of a quiet operation. Again, yoga, spiritual meditation, painting, those sorts of things. And Marcella is, of course, here, and if you'd like, you can hear from her later, and she's much more enthusiastic and charismatic than I am, but she can tell you about how this has been her passion her whole life. This is the right place for it. Everything is happening in the city of Miami to the south. People that are moving into the area around El Portal, really changing the dynamic. I don't have to tell you that. You live here. This is a very, interesting place, very natural place, much like what Coconut Grove used to be. It really, unfortunately, isn't anymore. And I think that, if not here, where? It's not often that I can make that argument or that suggestion to the council, but this is your commercial zoning district, T4, and this is amongst commercial uses, probably the most innocuous one that I could envision, particularly because we're not proposing new construction, but because we're adaptively reusing the building that's already there. So why are we here? Well, there is existing on-street parking on 82nd Street that's angled to the street right now. And what we're proposing to do, as you can see on the exhibit, is to change the orientation of the parking to make it perpendicular with the sidewalk instead of angled. And that is consistent with the way parking is oriented on the property to the north, as well as the way it exists on the property that is on the southern end of this block. And I think you have photographs of that came with the application. I think they're in the package as well. So what we're proposing is compatible and consistent with what you already have in the area. On this street, I believe that perhaps the parking was angled by design because it is a narrow street. We understand that. We understand that it's difficult as a neighborhood street, it's not a commercial street. But what we're doing to ensure that we meet the minimum size of the parking spaces is that we're providing an easement that is 15 inches wide that will allow for the sidewalk to remain consistent with what your code requires. We're actually increasing the size of the sidewalk from 4 feet 9 inches to 5 feet a little bit. So you're going to have a perfectly ADA and sidewalk that's consistent with your code requirements, but you're also going to move the sidewalk over, should you choose to approve this application, to allow the parking to be perpendicular to the property line and still provide adequate access for cars to traffic down 82nd Street. It's my understanding that this application requires that you review it pursuant to section 1759 of the Village Code, which is your site plan approval provision. And that requires, number one, that you require adequate space for automobile parking and for loading and unloading of goods. So again, to the extent that these criteria apply, I think you have to do so in a manner that recognizes that it's an existing structure. But we are making adequate accommodations for parking and loading by making this change to the existing parking that happens to abut the property. It also requires that the location of parking spaces and driveways protect the public safety, serve the public convenience, and in this case, the location of the parking is not changing. It's only being redesigned, being made more efficient, and I think that we're addressing this criteria by providing the easement that would be required should you choose to accept the application. The third criteria is that you assure that there's adequate drainage of the site. On site, of course, this is an existing structure, so it has drainage today, but there's one thing that's very important about this property is that it has a very large oak tree on it. I'm sure you all know it. It's beautiful. And you can see it in the picture on the board to my right. And we are preserving that tree. We're not proposing to change it in any way. And its root system is so large that, if we were to change anything around the tree, it would probably have a negative effect on the tree. So there's a septic drainage field right now in the backyard, and there's the tree's root system also. We're not proposing to change any of that. We want to leave that completely intact. And so allowing us to maintain the parking on the street as it is today will allow us to introduce this new use, but not change the backyard in any way. So I think that we address that criteria about drainage by essentially not changing anything in the backyard area. I think that all of the other criteria really apply to new construction. The location of signage is something that we're not proposing at this point. We would comply with code, whatever is allowed. We don't anticipate any large signage. And we're here to answer any questions that you have. We think this is a great, new, interesting neighborhood serving use. We hope that people will walk to it. And it'll be a place to meet your neighbors, hang around, and do positive things. So that, we're here to answer any questions that you have, and thank you for your time. Thank you for accommodating us for this special meeting as well. We really appreciate that.
No, and I want to apologize. I was traveling, and I really want to apologize, and I made it an effort when I got back to ensure that we had this meeting as soon as possible, because I do apologize about that, so I'm very glad. We generally like to meet on Tuesdays, but there's an exception, and I felt that this was worth a while, and I know that this has been going on, so I wanted to be sure that, and the manager and I took some time, and we met with the team to get a better understanding of all the projects, so I do have lots of questions.
Okay.
But I think they're a little geared more towards the applicant. I'd like to meet the applicant a little bit more, if that's okay? Yes.
To read the recommendation.
Did you want, yes, yeah. You can go first before, or you want to
When they're done with the
you can go,
presentation.
whatever, you can go through staff recommendation, then we can meet the applicant. Because maybe
Maybe the recommendations can answer some of the questions.
okay, perfect.
Sala Preserve Design. The staff recommendation for this application is approval with conditions. Pursuant of section 17-53 requirements and procedures for site plan review, A, the applicant shows good cause for ensuring the congruity of the proposed development and its compatibility with the surrounding area. The plans proposed comply with the land use regulations and the development standards of this chapter and of chapter 24. Furthermore, the change of use from residential into a yoga studio supports the village's vision plan in creating a commercial corridor on Northeast 2nd Avenue. Therefore, approval is recommended for this site plan review application, subject to the following conditions. 1, in the event that the village makes improvements to the street, hence changing the number of spaces adjacent to a subject property, the owner shall find alternate means of parking to satisfy the parking requirements for the use. Future certificates of use will require the satisfactory availability of parking. 2, right-of-way parking remains public. The property may use these spaces to satisfy the zoning requirements. However, any person may park on said public parking spaces regardless of their patronage. 3, new striping must be provided for parking uses within the right-of-way. 4, applicant will provide landscape and ensure improvements to a right-of-way do not cause danger to pedestrians walking on the sidewalk. 5, parking stops must be provided for all spaces in order to keep the sidewalk clear of obstacles. 6, no parking spaces shall encroach on the travel lanes. And 7, pursuant of Article 3, removal of trees, any tree removal must follow Miami-Dade Ordinance number 89-8.
Thank you, Camila. Marcelo? Yeah. Hello. State your name and address for the record,
Marcela Siegel,
and your address.
at 8780 Northeast Second Avenue.
Welcome to the Village of El Portal.
Thank you.
We're excited, I think it should be great, but I do have a few questions.
Yes.
I know that we've talked predominantly about the parking requirements, that it's an agreement that the village agrees to work alongside to ensure that you have sufficient parking so that you can carry on with the yoga studio.
Yes.
So the parkings that we've had, and I think, how many parkings are existing right now? 5, so it's going to be 10.
Yes.
So the 5 sustained for the most part, when the building was in use for the most part, because there was an overflow. You all are building onto the property,
Yes.
correct? Because that's based on the picture here.
Yes.
So the additional usage, the additional space that's being built on, I understand this by right, but the question I have is, do we know how many more people that's to accommodate? Because that's really for the yoga studio, correct?
Yes.
And do we know the capacity? Is fire given a capacity? Are we there yet with regards to what?
We're in zoning.
So we don't know what the capacity of that's going to be?
We do.
Well, fire is very, very,
You need to come to the podium.
well, the fire department can be very, very restricted.
State your name and address for
My
the
name is Scott Winkle. Address,
Yes.
400 Kings Point Drive, Sunny Isles Beach. Well, the fire takes like the worst possible case scenario, and I think we're around, I haven't looked at it in a while, but somewhere between 40 and 50 people.
40 and 50 people.
Right.
Okay. And that's just for the additional space?
No, that's for the entire building.
That's for the building the building plus the new area that
Correct.
you're proposing to do? Okay. What are going to be the hours of the yoga studio?
9 a.m. to, I don't know if I want to open it at lunch, but that, 2 sections until like maybe 7 p.m.
9 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And the yoga studio is predominantly going to be in the addition?
Yes.
And then the main building is going to,
The main building, the bottom will be kind of like a reception, just for people to just come in, maybe sign up for the classes, maybe change there or something. And then, get their water, that kind of stuff. And then in the back, there's going to be the actual.
and then the upstairs is going to be offices rented out?
Yes, my idea is maybe having, space for practitioners
Okay.
to, work there.
No one's going to be living there?
No,
No Airbnb?
no. They used to be.
Also and I'll get back to the diagram shows the picture of bushes. Are you all removing the fence?
Yes. No, those are bamboo hedges. The fence remains in the back, on the west side.
The entire property is fenced on the
Correct.
back.
Yes,
So you're removing this side, replace it with the bush?
correct.
The bushes. But you're going to keep that fence and that fence with,
Yes.
okay. Reasons for moving the fences?
We just need a little bit more space to maneuver there and just seem less of an encroachment.
The septic tank is right underneath where you all are building.
I'm sorry, do what?
The septic tank on that
Oh.
property is right underneath where you guys are building. I'm assuming that's approved by Department of Health?
Yes, it has been.
It has been, you have a permit for that?
Yeah.
Everything else has been approved.
Everything is, the Department of Health approved that?
Yes.
Did the Department of Health also give you the quantity? Because they generally give you the quantity in terms of either flushes a day or whatever. Did they give you that number?
Yes.
Yes.
And what is that?
We had a person, a horticultural person who arranged all that.
Yeah.
I remember the numbers.
We had, actually, the tree has a godfather. It's been mulched and, everything's been like taken care of. That's why we've been at it for like 1.5 years already.
Is this an existing business?
Hmm? No.
Is your business existing or is it a brand new business?
No, brand new.
Brand new business. The deck Is that for use? The deck,
On the front?
Oh, no, no, upstairs, there's no occupants allowed on the roof.
Okay, so that opening there is gonna be closed? There's an
There's a
opening,
window. It's
That's
just
a
like-
window.
Yeah, it's-
but it looks direct access out to the roof.
yeah, it'll be closed, there's no access to the roof through that window. Is that the question? Because no one's allowed on the roof.
So there are a couple of, we have a lot of residents that are into meditation and a lot of residents that are into yoga. And I guess reasons that I'm asking all this is because I think that's a really big capacity for parking. I don't know how that's sufficient parking for the capacity of 40 or 50. But
It was
that's, I
set by
guess,
square footage, I believe. It was,
based on square footage.
yeah.
There's,
Um,
excuse me, there's no class with 40 or 50 people. There's never, the idea is to make it really intimate.
Yeah.
So if we have a painting workshop or we have a yoga class, it's gonna be like 10 to 15 people, no more than that. To
You know,
make it-
what we've also seen, thank you for that, and what I've seen in some of the practices of yoga and meditation is when, and maybe this could be a condition, I know that when there comes to be a time for the moon, there's a lot of people that come out. I go to Pilates regularly, and I know my Pilates teacher hosts a lot of these events. I went to one of them, and thank goodness, I'm a big believer in Uber, because there was nowhere to park in that city, Miami. So that concerns me because we have a home right now that does it often. I think they moved to California, but there's another home that does it regularly. So I'd like to potentially see that as a condition because if, I can just perhaps foresee there be an overflow of cars and then it's going to be parked in the sanctuary across the street and there may be a lower. I don't know if that's something that you're thinking of doing down the road in your business.
I can take them to the beach to look at the moon.
I know that's something that's probably do 2 or 3 times of the year and and I want your business to be as successful. I own a business right down the street from you. And I want you to have as lot of students as possible, and maybe we will be too, students there, but we have to just take that into consideration that these things are possible. We never assume our business is going to be that successful, but it just might be.
Oh, mine will be.
And if it is, then we have to really factor in what that's going to really look like as it relates to those nights of events or that, right now in good faith, but then all of a sudden it's the red moon and it's once in a lifetime and oh my goodness, and we got to use that deck. And so that's why I really would like to see that closed. And really maybe there be a condition of some kind where we put that if there's going to be a special red moon. I mean, right now we're in the, 50 years ago the man went on the moon. We don't know what's going to happen this year, right? So I'd like to see something along the lines where, you are, although your setbacks are great, there are people that live right around you that, go to work every day and all that, and they're not going to want, tons and tons of cars along the way. So maybe something like that.
If I may,
Yes, please,
respond to that,
uh-huh.
because it's funny, I had the same question that you had to the architect, to Scott, when I saw the elevation, because I saw the large roof, and remember, Scott, I said, is that accessible? Because I figured that might be a question that someone would have. And then Marcella confirmed to me, no, that it's not, and so did Scott. But I do appreciate what you're saying, is that if the business is successful, there might be the right time for something like that. And rather than to prohibit it entirely and require a new hearing for something, I would suggest if maybe something like that could be done through a special administrative permit or request to the city, if there was a special celestial event and.
Well, we require a special event permit of anything greater, and that you definitely go to the manager for. But just rule of thumb, not to mention,
I'm sorry, are you talking about the roof?
yeah, I'm talking about there's a
No,
deck here.
nothing's gonna happen on top of the roof.
As long as we put
I don't
that
think
either
there's-
part of the agreement or anything that they,
Yeah, okay.
when, I probably wouldn't be asking that if I didn't see an opening.
Yeah.
If there just would have been windows across the board on your rendering, I probably would have really not asked the question, but because there is an opening that looks like it looks like a door, that looks like a door, that's the window.
It's very small and it's a window, it's not a door.
So maybe a new rendering by the next council meeting if this gets there?
Yes.
To indicate that that's not going to be an opening, okay? That it's a window, so when there's a window, it shouldn't go straight down to the floor, the window should have,
I understand.
okay?
Yes. But we'll change the rendering.
You get one?
What, to have
Okay,
okay. All right. All right, Lisa.
I'm trying to help, because I think it might be something interesting to do through a special permit on a special evening for a yoga and spiritual place. But it's up to the board. We're easily live with a condition that it's not accessible. But I don't want her to give up that ability if it's something that might be very, very nice, you know.
Well, I think that, I do believe that now we're going into another area. Why? Because under safety. To me, it would have to go through another department, not my department, I don't believe, but I mean, I take a look at that, and again, maybe this rendering is not doing it any justice, but then we're talking about railing, and then we're talking about hiring police officers.
True.
So there's, you know, we're not saying special events are not allowed. My concern is a little bit on the twofold side. Number one, the deck is, to me, does not seem safe, and number two, I don't think the residents that are living on the back are probably going to want to see that on a regular basis, because I don't think if we lived right there, I think you'd feel the same way. And then you have the public safety issue.
Yes.
When I take a look at this, to me, it doesn't seem safe. And are you going to allow to have children here? I mean, you know, a child just fell off a deck in a boat, you know? So, I mean, it's our responsibility to think of all of those things. So if that's an avenue that you're going to cross, we're not here to dissuade any business. We want to welcome the business. Again, as I said, I have a business on Northeast Second Avenue, but as you can understand, as a business owner, there's a cost to everything, and you just have to be really mindful that that's just a, when I look at it, to me, that was just, it's.
Well, let's say that as it is planned right now, I should have to like let the people through a window, not a door, because that's a window for the second floor. We are not
Okay.
planning to go on the roof.
Okay, so if that's not going to be used, then I would definitely just would request it in writing, and I would also request that the rendering indicate accordingly.
No
Because right now,
problem.
if we approve this, we're approving an opening directly that you can walk out to the deck,
Okay.
based on the. And then my last question was, let's see. The upstairs has 3 rooms. Are we adding any more rooms, or
I think they're gonna be 4.
there's going to be 4? So you're
Yeah.
adding an addition. So you're taking the kitchen out and you're adding a.
Yes, partition of it's a living room right now.
It's a living room. Okay.
Yeah.
And then downstairs, I think it had a middle office in the middle, correct? Or is it has three
There's
offices?
gonna be my office, kind of, you know, there, and then the rest is gonna be open.
I have other conditions that I'd like to discuss further. If this would move to council, we could discuss further. It doesn't necessarily have to be this evening, because I think I see it on the recommendation with regards to requiring maintenance and repair of the area around me in terms of the parking, just sort of keeping it up to where it needs to be with regards to the swale and all around it. And I'm assuming you're going to have a handicap, right?
Yes.
I don't want to make that assumption, it probably should be on there. Let's see what else. But yeah, I do have other conditions that I mentioned to Ron that we can have at a separate meeting. But I'm going to open it up to my colleagues and see if they have any questions. To the council.
I have a few questions.
All right, I'm going to first go with Councilperson Roman. She asked me first, and then we'll move on.
Welcome, and I'm sorry that I want to apologize too for not being here. I walked out and I thought you were going to have a forum. I had class that evening, so my apologies to have you come back. I think it's an exciting project. I actually live a block away, and I love yoga, so I may be, you know, if this goes through, then I may be a customer in the future. My question to you is regarding the parking. The reason that I am asking about it is because I have a friend and a neighbor that lives in that street, and with the previous owners had a concern with the parking always being taken. And it's something that, so the parking doesn't belong to the actual building, is that correct?
No, it belongs to us.
It belongs to us, okay. And so, this has been a complaint that I've heard for a few years, so I don't know, I mean, I'm just bringing it up, because it's,
Well, I asked.
I know we're adding 5 parking spaces. Do we have a, handicap currently space there? Oh, we don't.
Well, we will be providing.
Okay, I know you're providing one, because the mayor just asked that. And I don't know who this question is for, but what my question is, or who is it for, but I'm just raising a concern that I know that I've received from several of the one in particular that lives 2 houses down.
I think it's a if I may respond to
Yeah.
that, I think it's a valid concern, and it's a concern that I hear expressed with respect to every form-based code that is the new trend and every municipality is adopting. So I think your planner is really on the cutting edge of code revisions, because all the major cities that are progressive cities are going towards less parking and form-based codes. And it is a problem, but it works out. You know, I see it in the city of Miami all the time, where parking requirements changed drastically, even for restaurants, which are, you
So
know,
I think where I would go with this is I would want to make sure, because this is going to be the first time that it's going to be, well, the first time since I remember. It could have been something commercial before that, I don't remember. It's maybe inform the residents on that street, should this pass, or, I don't know what's proper to do. I just, I know it's been brought up, I mean, I have emails that I've received because of this issue.
So, may I address your question?
Yeah.
One way that pursue your design. It's a very valid concern. You have to remember two things. I think that I should bring up. There is precedent. A couple of years ago, we got an application very similar to this one from a pediatrics clinic, and it had a very similar condition where the applicant was requesting the use of the parking on the street. That was done with conditions very similar to this, but it was approved. And up until now, I believe that things have been working in terms of parking quite well. I understand that there's been some communication between Village Hall and the former applicant, but that was approved. So this is a very similar situation. The second thing that I wanted to mention is that we should remember that we changed the zoning on Second Avenue to become commercial based on a vision from the village residents from way back when. And parking is going to be an issue. In fact, parking is an issue everywhere. I should also make mention that the parking requirements that we have today are the parking requirements we have had since the 1970s. The new code did not change those requirements. It just changed the language to include them as part of the form-based code. So there's a few ways that we can solve the issue of some of the residents in the Z3 zone. One of them would be metering. Another would be out through hours of operation. That could be also a condition which we used, I believe we used the hours of operation for a special exception in the sanctuary when they came through. So there are different tools that we can use to control, manage the parking situation. Nevertheless, parking right now is a necessity. People drive. People are driving less and less, but still they drive, and so you have to provide for it. But the nature of the street, which is Second Avenue, and yes, this is a residential street, but it's the corner that faces the commercial property. And so the parking, in my professional opinion, is provided there because we have a commercial frontage. Even if it's a corner, it's a commercial frontage, instead of further back where it's residential. If it was residential, trust me, we would not have recommended approval for perpendicular parking in front of a house. So this parking condition, I believe, is in accordance with the use that is being requested and that it was rezoned for. And there's an improvement on that parking. Right now, it's a little bit in disrepair. The applicant is requesting that parking change, but also they are going to not only repair it, change it, and also maintain it. So I think there's a few reasons why we recommended approval. The last thought that I really missed not to mention, that the applicant didn't mention, so there's going to be a bike rack. And more on Second Avenue as businesses come along, we're going to require other facilities like bike racks, improvement of the sidewalks. Little by little, we hope that in collaboration with the village applicants will start repairing Second Avenue and really create the Main Street that was envisioned during the Chevrolet backlog.
And so the bike rack is going to be installed by the owner?
Yes, that's part of the application, and it will be on the right of way. We have to work with the applicant on the second revision that we'll bring to you if this passes today, to improve that corner. We'll work with the engineers to make sure that those sidewalks work well, that there's ADA crossing right now, there's a grass swale. But all these applications eventually will start creating that Main Street that was envisioned in the village.
My second question, thank you. My second question is regarding garbage. So do we know where the garbage is supposed to be placed at that property? Is it supposed to be on that sidewalk where the parking is, or is it supposed to be in the back in the alley?
Back in
For
there.
pickup, when they pick up.
If you
Sir,
speak,
take
if you speak, please go to the podium, okay? One at a time.
Right now, they pick up right by the alley,
Okay.
on
And
88.
okay, and once again, I'm asking because this has been an issue where in the past, the cans were placed on that sidewalk right next to the parking spaces. And I guess that's where it was getting picked up, and then the cans were left out. And that was a concern for the residents on that street. So I just want to make sure that we stress if that is where it's supposed to be picked up, that that area is not used for garbage.
That is where it's supposed to be picked up, and I apologize, it might be that a few times they might, left the trash can, because nobody lives there, so. But that happened, it was like maybe once or twice, because we don't use that.
Does that conclude your question? So sorry. Okay. Councilperson Urban?
How are you doing? Along the lines, I have a question regarding trash. Now, what would you anticipate in terms of related use of trash? For example, waste, meaning in terms of deliveries, are you going to have retail in terms of like products, things like this? Is there going to be any impact whatsoever regarding an increase in delivery vehicles or an increase of output of trash that would cause you to either need an additional trash can or have overflowing trash cans?
Well, there's gonna be only like beverages for the people that use, and they come for the yoga place, but I don't foresee like
We're not talking
a lot
about
amount of,
daily delivery?
yeah, a lot of,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. And not to beat a dead horse here, but in terms of the roof on the addition, do we know already what the material of the roof will be? I think that would probably answer the question of whether or not there would ever be occupancy up there. So if we're talking about a concrete roof with drainage, just commercial.
We already ruled out
Right.
this in the roof.
Okay. Will there be any change whatsoever in at any point on the property of the elevation of the property, meaning, will it be built up on that lot anywhere during the transition to business?
Elevation, like the drainage and the grade, or the actual
That's what I'm talking
physical structure?
You need to
Please,
go to the
whatever
podium.
you do, please one at a time, and please come to the podium.
So
And
you-
every time you come to
so-
the podium, give me 1 second. And every time you come to the podium, you must state your name and address. Sorry, just decorum.
Scott Winkle, 400 Kings Point Drive, Sunny Isles Beach. It's a question of elevation. So, do you mean like the elevation to grade as a drainage and so on?
Yes, yes.
I'm not sure. It's fairly flat all across. I don't see any change in the elevation.
There's nothing specifically in the plans that you've got over with an architect in terms of, hey, we need to add
Are you still
grade.
talking about the roof?
No, I'm talking,
No,
I'm
he's
talking
talking about the
ground
ground.
level.
Oh, okay.
Right. I'm specifically asking about impact of whether
The
the
tree
additional
covers
runoff
so
off that
much.
property after the work is done with the addition is what I'm asking.
Well, the footprint, the roots of the tree are so substantial, and our drainage field is like the rest of it, so there's almost no room for us to play any games in the
Okay.
backyard.
Very good. And then, final question is also regarding parking. And so, in these renderings here, I can't see what is the width of each parking space as you have it.
It's the code width, I think it's 8'6". 8'6".
It's 8 6. All
by
right.
18 feet.
So I would just say for the public's benefit, personally, I would like to see fewer parking spaces that would be wider, and understanding the concerns that go along with adequate parking for the number of clients and things like this. I try not to look at things too much with rose-colored glasses and say, hey, we can fit 10 spaces, when in reality that might cause its own level of difficulties, including maybe loss of space for garbage cans to be put out, increased incidence of even things like fender benders pulling out of narrow spots. For example, if a car has to get into the opposing lane to successfully transition into a 90-degree parking space, that is one concern I would have, including vehicles reversing.
I'm gonna let Juan answer.
There's two things of concern on that. The first one is there's a minimum code requirement for parking, so if we reduce parking spaces, that means that we're going to have to reduce the whole project.
Gotcha.
And remove square footage. And the second one is by code, so code 6 is allowed.
And so with that number of parallel spaces right next to each other, we feel that vehicles would be able to enter the parking spaces and exit the parking spaces without significantly impacting opposing lanes, including having to back up into the neighbors across the street property to be able to successfully then shoot left or right, east or west to leave the property.
So perpendicular parking in general is the least ideal on a street.
Okay.
Period.
Right, that's my,
it is what it is.
right, on its face, that's my first concern. Okay.
But it is allowed.
As long as we're considering for it, it's within the code and
It is within the code.
we're mitigating that impact, I would be satisfied.
It is within the code, and the other thing that you might take into account is that the building across the street has this condition.
Right.
So, we are going to need parking for this building, especially because we are, evolving the main street. The provision of these 10 spaces is necessary by code. Is it ideal? No. But eventually, once you change the code, once you put out a vision, doesn't mean that the whole Main Street is tomorrow built. So it'll be, I'm not saying that this is going to happen tomorrow, or next year, or in 5 years, but eventually this building may be torn down, and a 2 to 3 story building may be built. Maybe a few lots will be assembled, and there will be a parking solution that is, that makes us reclaim these spaces and make a nicer sidewalk.
Sure.
I always try, when we get applications, we always try and consider whether or not it's a retrofit of an existing building. And if so, it's not that we're being more lenient, it's that we are trying to work with the applicant to see how this is going to work. If it was new construction, that would be a different story, and we would be a lot more stringent with the code.
Okay, very good.
Vice Mayor Anderson, did you have any?
Not necessarily. I have a question, but I don't know if it's a silly question or not yet. But I'm looking, so I'm thinking about what everybody was bringing up about the trash. I think Councilperson Roman brought up a real good point about the trash and the bins being left out in the front. And I'm just thinking that sometimes when you have a lot of other business properties, they have room in the back side on the alley side to put one of those smaller, large, green, you know what I mean? And the trash trucks can come through the alleyways, pick them up real quick, because I stay in the complex across the street, the cottages, that's where I stay at. And we have it to where it's blocked off really nice with a fence, you can't even see it back there. And it's a small, but one of those large green garbage things that might kind of take away the actual bins being left out over the weekend. That might not look really well. I don't know. That's why I said it might be a silly question, but I just decided I would ask that.
No, I don't think it's a good question. I'm sorry. I would like to, because it's a concern, and it's our concern as well, we will work with the applicant to see how we can buffer landscape around where the trash cans are left, which need to be on the alley, because it's the third layer, and that's where the service needs to be by code.
All right, thank you so much for your time. It was great. All the questions were great. It's not a silly question. Believe it or not, that was discussed in the room here. Waste management was discussed with businesses, so it's great questions. Okay. With that said, do we have a motion to move this plan review to the full council, taking into consideration all that has been said this evening with regards to the roof, the parking, all the little sort of the details that were said this evening. If Camila took note, is there a motion for review, for consideration to full council? And it will be at the September meeting, not the July meeting.
I'll move the motion to.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilperson Roman to accept the site plan review with some of the revisions made by our staff to the council, full council in September. Is there a second?
I'll make a second, Madam Mayor, for the motion
Okay.
to move to full council with our recommendations and revisions that were stated.
Okay, perfect. There's a motion made by Councilperson Roman, a second by Vice Mayor Nicholson. Madam Clerk, can I have roll call?
Roll call, Councilperson Urban.
Yes.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Mayor Cubillos.
Yes.
Motion passes, 4-1.
Okay, thank you so much. You all have a good night. Ben, it was nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We talked to you soon. Thank you. At this time, F2, amendments to fence regulation and results discussion from the town hall and the survey that was done thereafter. Thank you. You're more than welcome. Nice meeting you all.
Camila Sala, the survey design. Yes, this item, we're bringing back after having analyzed the survey responses from a total of 71 people who went in and took the survey, in addition to the discussion at the town hall. 71 people, and unfortunately, well, the good thing is that everyone was very clear about what they wanted, but there's no clear consensus about any particular height or material in terms of the ones that were introduced. So I may quickly summarize the results to get an idea of what the residents who responded are thinking. We proposed, the survey had a series of pictures showing fences for the front yard and the side yard. The survey could have been a little more specific, but we did not want anyone to get fixated on any particular fence, because the idea is to be open to what the residents would like to see and what their concerns are in terms of privacy, in terms of how they can, and aesthetics, and the balance of these. So the white picket fence, that was a mid-range height. Some respondents really liked the fence and others didn't. This was split. The 6-foot aluminum fence, most respondents did not like this fence. This was strongly opposed. This was a Dura fence, and we've had several of these applications come through and concerns about these fences popping up without approval. We think that there's other ways to provide security without having that material. The combination of concrete and wood, most respondents like this fence, and they, through the comments, they said that they would like more flexibility in terms of the combination of materials that they would like to use. Natural landscape, again, most respondents would prefer this in their front yard instead of having a closed off front yard. El Portal is known for over the years, most homes, they have an open front yard, and several respondents made note of this in their comments. In terms of the side yard, most people want privacy, of course, and they would like the option of introducing new materials. Currently, the material that is used for privacy fences is wood, and that's it. And wood is hard to maintain, and it rots easily, and that was one of the major, one of the comments that was brought up the most. Hedges. A lot of respondents want to be able to have hedges for privacy. The height, 6 to 8 feet, that was the most preferred. And aluminum and wood, again, the combination of these materials was favored. through the comments and through the picture. So, in the end, most respondents want tall fences for their rear and side yards, not for their front yards. They they did favor medium height fences to at least have some sort of privacy, but to still be able to look through and have visibility towards the street and towards the house. That was good often as well. The location, the biggest concern for location not only came up in the survey responses, but also in our constant review of applications is the corner lots. The issue is that many property owners that have a corner lot, they currently are not able to have a fence by right on the secondary frontage. And that is their rear yard, and they would like a way to be able to have privacy for their, beyond their front yard. The issue is that if they were to erect a fence on the property line, and then the rest of the street, they have to follow the 25-foot setback, then that causes a discontinuance. And so currently, the code does not allow by right. Currently, they have to apply for a variance, and that was a concern that came up as well. So our request is to amend the regulations of the location and height of the fences and the material of the fences in Chapter 24, Appendix B, Section 15, in order to allow additional materials for fences in the side and rear yards that provide privacy but do not require constant maintenance, and to allow 4-foot walls and fences of different materials by right within the secondary front setback. Those are the recommendations that they propose. I would like to,
So, hey, listen, I have lots of questions about the fences, and I thought the fence town hall was great. But this is just one of those topics, right? Because, I'm doing a scan in my head of the village, and there's a lot of hedges that are 8 to 10 feet, right? So it's just a matter of how it's like it goes with everything. It's how we're going to disseminate the information, how are we going to educate our residents, and how are we going to put this change through. I mean, I had a meeting today and somebody was like, oh, change is not good. Well, sometimes change is necessary or to provide consistency, right? Because there's a lot of fences that are aluminum already that have been approved. So are they going to be grandfathered in? I agree with the wood. Personally, I have wood. I'm getting quotes right now to what it would be cost to get something else, but I was actually waiting to see what was going to eventually happen with the regulation and the ordinance that may be coming forward. So, and it's interesting with the results because we're not going to make everybody happy, but I just really think that I want to ask the council for comments, but we also have an agenda item that's called, that I want to go into a little more, which is the architecture pattern book, because I think that might go hand in hand before we decide what the fence ordinance should be or could be. I think this needs to be a conversation of the architecture pattern book. That came up at a meeting that we had internally, and I think that's really necessary. So I'd ask the council if you have any questions, but maybe save them until we have the architecture pattern book, because I think they really are going to go hand in hand. It's my thought. Is that okay? Is that okay? Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to do the survey and for doing the for the town hall. I really do think that those that came saw the tremendous value. Let's go to F3, right-of-way vacation procedures.
This item is to introduce some language to allow for right-of-way vacation. It's a piece of legislation that's missing on the code right now. It's not a piece of legislation that we're going to use that often. We don't have that many right-of-way vacations. We have seen in the county some alley vacations, which could be potential applications in the future. But right now, there's not that many. There is, though, one potential application that may come to us in the future, but that still has to come to us. And the reason reason why we're putting this legislation in place is so that we can at least discuss that application, so that they have an avenue to come to you and propose a right-of-way vacation. It is pretty simple legislation. We work with the village attorney to write it. Again, it's just a vehicle for potential future applications that may come. I'll answer any questions.
Okay, so this is, stand by. This is not entirely geared to Hugh Gladwin, or is it? Or is it this derived from Hugh Gladwin's,
Well, that's the catalyst for this.
Okay.
We've received a request by Mr. Gladwin,
Gladwin,
thank you, to have the street vacated next to his property. But when I looked at it, discussed it with Juan Camila, code is silent as to what steps any resident or property owner would take in order to have that application considered by the village. So we wanted to start the process by coming to you all with the request, obviously, to move forward with the legislation to do that.
So, and as Vice Mayor Nicker said, part of my ignorance on this one, but is this going to be an ordinance with 2 readings, or just a reso? This is an,
Yes, it has to.
it has to be an
Yes,
ordinance?
yes, it has to
Okay.
be. We would be amending the code to include a right-of-way
Okay.
vacation process. So you get the first, you would get the first reading, yes, and we would have the September.
Yeah, you have the ordinance for the first reading for September? Okay.
That's a good.
Any questions from the council to either the attorney or Juan? First reading in September. Okay, perfect. So we will look for, let's get a motion to move this to the full council for the September meeting with the first reading for an ordinance. So can I have a motion to move this to full council?
I'll make a motion to move this to full council for the first reading ordinance, Madam Mayor.
Okay, there's a first, is there a motion by Vice Mayor Nickerson? Is there a second?
Second motion.
Thank you. And a second by Urban. There's a motion on the table by Vice Mayor, second by Councilperson Urban. All in favor signal, no, actually, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilperson Urban.
Yes.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Mayor Cubillos.
Yes, thank you.
Motion passes.
Perfect, thank you so much. Okay, let's go to Camila. I guess you're going to talk a little bit about the Soul Smart program and the next steps and the, 1 second, I'm going to.
Camila Sabla, Facility Design. Yes, this item is to inform the committee of the Village of El Portal's Soul Smart participation. I know that you're already aware of the village's participation, but just so that everyone knows what the current status is of the program participation. We, with the help of our Soul Smart advisor, the village has been submitted for bronze designation, and they should have an answer within the next couple of weeks. For those who do not know, SoulSmart is a U.S. Department of Energy-funded effort to establish and implement a new community technical assistance and designation program designed to recognize communities that have taken steps to make it easier for businesses and residents to go solar. So basically, we're streamlining the process for residents to be able to apply and quickly be able to implement solar energy in their homes or businesses if they wish to do so at the village. On the website now, there are some zoning regulations. There's a fact sheet in which there are, the regulations have been summarized for easy access. And with the council's approval or support, we can also move forward and post additional information. There, we can have a landing page, and all of these steps that the village takes towards facilitating streamlining the process. Allows the village to earn more points and eventually become either silver designated or gold designated, which it's great in many regards for the village. And we also, well, this kind of goes hand in hand with the next item, because the SoulSmart participation also helps with resilience, and we can include this in the upcoming comprehensive plan amendments, but we can talk about that in detail with the next item.
Are we gonna talk about this on Saturday a little bit as part of Resiliency Town Hall? We have information there?
Okay.
Did we or have we or adopt a no permit fee if they did this? Did I hear that somewhere?
No, we haven't done that yet, but we can certainly review that.
I thought I saw that somewhere, read that somewhere. I don't know if I thought I heard that from somewhere, or some city, if they were, in an effort to promote SoulSmart, someone makes sense, they would reduce the permit fees or something like that, or I don't know if some cities were doing that, I thought we were doing that.
If the village were to do that, it allows you to receive more points and therefore get higher designation. Or there's a specific fee, $400 or $300, or is it 400?
Well, what's the fee
but it's
for,
one of
what's the
them.
fee for, I mean, we have some residents that have solar panels. What's the fee, do we know what that fee is in El Portal?
No, I don't know that yet. I'll be back.
Okay.
We'll discuss, because I agree, we want to encourage.
Even if we did it, like, if we did it for a, doesn't have to be perpetually, free, but if we did it for like an introductory or something,
And to have one fee only, because I believe right now there's the zoning fee and the separate fees, and so if we were to just have one fee or no fees, then.
but for residents, right? Not for
Right.
necessarily business.
And another point worth mentioning, also for residents, is in terms of zoning and having the solar panels facing the public right of way, it's just strongly encouraged not to do so
Yeah,
when possible.
yeah. No, that would only make sense. Yeah, I definitely would like that we can, I mean, there's gonna be so many topics on Saturday, but even if we have info, and it'd be great to have, I mean, I think that's an administrative thing that doesn't necessarily have to come before the council to fee. But if we have an idea of what that is, and it's something that you wanna potentially consider, let us know.
I think it's worth noting that South Miami has taken, an incredible lead in Miami-Dade County for solar. And in talking with Mayor Stoddard, since our mayor is already in the council.
Well, Mayor Stoddard is like the leader in everything that
Yeah,
comes resiliency
so-
and sustainability
but
and green. I mean,
He
South
would be a
Miami
great
is.
resource to answer a lot of questions. I think we would be remiss not to mention that the Florida statutes precludes us from stopping or stopping people from applying for panels that face the right of way. That needs to be clear. Now, it is not recommended in our village. That doesn't mean that we don't allow them, because we can't, based on Florida statutes. The reason why we don't recommend them is because of the aesthetics that it would create on the street for especially historic buildings. And that's something that probably removes points from this program. But, as your planning department, we feel strongly about resiliency and energy, and we're also very progressive. But when it comes to historic preservation and the character of the village, we are also very concerned about that. So it's something that we need to work with each applicant and see how to best work on this. Let's not forget also that there's new technology that allows for solar tiles. So our recommendation would be, don't dismiss other, ways to get solar and work with the applicant for that. But I wanted to make sure that everybody knows the state precludes us from prohibiting solar facing the right of way.
Two things. I know that this is already on our website, correct? And I know that's something that you wanted to get out of the newsletter, and I think it still needs to go out of the next one.
Yes.
But if that's something that we're gonna do, maybe have a collective decision or decision by the administration, just how we're going to, put out this promotion. for lack of a better word, right? Councilperson Urban?
Just a couple of things. One, what are, forgive me if I'm being redundant or asking a question that's already been answered, but what are the exact benefits of being recognized by this program to the village?
We think the benefits for the village are actually what has to be done in order to get to these points. So this is, it's great because it's an implementation nationwide, but really streamlining this process within the village regardless of the recognition is fantastic just to encourage them.
I agree entirely.
Oh, but.
So just for the record, I'm 100% in favor of green technologies and 110% in favor of off-grid technology, so.
The main benefit, to be very honest,
Yeah.
you know, we all like the medal, so
Okay.
the village would get a little recognition, which is also always great. To us, the biggest perk, I guess, is that we have technical advisors in the program
Okay.
that have helped us streamline the process, change a little bit the code, propose amendments to the code that would allow for this to be streamlined. So it really is the assistance of the program from federal level.
That's a huge benefit. The residents should
We're not
know
experts,
about,
so that helps.
So-
And then we get a little recognition.
Because at the outset, before I knew anything about this program, I thought it was attached essentially to FPL, which was a whole nother separate discussion in terms of.
This more than anything is education for our residents,
So,
and education for us as well, because we have a technician that tells us, you know, your
Right.
code doesn't allow for this,
So-
that, and the other.
So in terms of not facing the right of way, I would think, dare even to make an assumption that the reason that the state would preclude outright banning of solar panels on rights of way is because we are on a planet, and at different times of year, the sun is always going to be in the south. And so if anyone knows anything about solar panels, you need 100% of each individual panel to receive sunlight for it to be working properly. So if you put it on the north side of most buildings in Miami, for example, you're going to have a difficult time throughout most of the year catching enough sun to generate electricity at all. I would say that it had to be something to do with that.
No, and again, we're not precluding that from happening, but there are situations in which the buildings are not just north and south, that they have L shapes.
Right, sure.
They have flat roofs. In fact, the new application for the yoga studio they want to consider having solar panels on their new flat roof, which is not a deck. But this program allows us to get educated, to help the residents be educated about how to apply for these things, and that's really the benefit for us.
In addition to that, what you see, the attachments that you see in the packet, the zoning review was the very first thing that the advisor helped us with, is finding the elements in the code currently that there are barriers towards streamlining and implementing solar regulation. So we've been working, not to make amendments yet, but perhaps tackling them if they become an issue once residents start, or more residents start to panels. And this was to no cost, at no cost to the village. Their help, SoulSmart help.
All right, Councilperson Roman?
So there are fees here, are these current fees that we have? It says $300 for zone 3, low density residential, and $800 for zone 4, small scale mixed use, and zone 5, higher density mixed use.
So they're following the current fees for zoning, for the ones that were adopted earlier.
So these are our current fees?
These are our current fees.
Waive them.
Okay.
We could waive the fees of it for solar.
Okay, so if we wanted to waive them, let's say, so is that something that we bring to the full council and vote on, and like how do we move forward?
According to the code, I have to take a look at the code. I was under my impression that waiving of the fees is an administrator, but I have to look at the code. Is it?
I think waiving the fee would mean that the guidelines are so specific and everything's worked out to the point that no review or additional review should be needed, and that way there's not such a long turnaround time to receive the permit, and that in itself eliminates the need for the fee, and
So if it's something that we wanted to consider, that the council will agree the manager to consider, we can adopt it by like an introductory period, whether 90 days or 60 days or 120 days in an effort to do a full blowout promotion of SoulSmart. It's not gonna be forever, but maybe for 6 months, 3 months, you know, but I wanna say that based on what you said, and it's also, it's an administrative, the waiving of the fees, it's an administrative, but you have to remind me to vote on it.
Our recommendation would be that you pass this today because it's good all around, and potentially consider the waiving of fees maybe on Z3 and maybe Z4. Maybe you can keep the fees for Z5, which, you know, they're larger projects that could potentially handle these fees. And that, you know, this application could be revised and modified for council. So you can approve it with conditions, and we'll change those conditions for the next round.
Thank you, Juan and Camila. Any questions from the council? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion so that we can move forward with this?
I'll make a motion to move this to the full council, Madam Mayor, pending the,
One at a time.
I'll make a motion to move this to the full council. How would I say that, Mr. Attorney, pending the discussion? Because I'm assuming that we're going to move this to the full council, but we're also at the full council, along with Councilperson Mack, we're going to talk about whether we want the manager to waive the fees.
May I make a motion? Okay. I'd like to make a motion to move this to the full council with a 90-day removal of the permit fees on Z3, Zone 3.
Is that what you were contemplating? It sounded like you were asking to move the item to the full council, but still have a discussion concerning the fees at that time.
That's kind of like what I wanted. I mean, I'm not against. Do I have to second her thing and then we'll talk about it? Or can we talk about it right now?
Well, there's a motion on the floor, and she's asking for a friendly amendment to your motion. You can accept or reject the friendly amendment.
I don't want to reject.
Okay, this is a P and Z meeting, it's gonna go to council, okay? So let's all focus for 2 seconds here. There's a motion to move it to full council with the removal of the fees for T3, which is all residentials, for a period of 90 days. Now, all keep in mind, this is gonna go to council. The council may make another friendly amendment, but this is an amendment to move this to full council. Also keep in mind what Camila said, it's also written in a format so that it mitigates constant discussion and to kind of streamline it in a little more quicker manner. And so that there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? To have further discussion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion on the dais to move this to full council and with the granting the manager to removal of the fees for 90 days for T3, Zone 3, T3. And a second by Vice Mayor Nickerson. Now there can be a discussion. Is there a discussion or question on that?
Yeah, the only thing I was just going to say was that I'm not against what, you know, the motion, or of course I seconded it. I just want to say just for the record, at the full council meeting is where I do want to just kind of contemplate whether we do just Zone 3 or Zone 3 and Zone 4, and I think that it was a good idea, maybe 6 months, you know, instead of 90 days. I think 6 months, because I think it'd take a while for us to get it out to our residents to respond, to actually, you know, make a move and actually put that in motion. So I think 6 months would be ideal for something like this.
Okay, so keep in mind, the committee is a workshop. This is the opportunity to be able to workshop ideas. So I think that your idea 6 months is better than 3 months. So I will make it, and when we go to full council, and I understand that we want to respect members that are not here, but we have an obligation to be here. So with that said, by the time we get to full council, the council by then has reviewed the decision of the committee and had the opportunity to reach out to Juan, reach out to the attorney, reach out to the manager, and ask questions. So I'd like to make a recommendation to the amendment that I made, instead of 3 months, it to be 6 months. I think that's so there's a friendly amendment on the dais from 3 months to 6 months.
Mayor?
There's an amendment, there needs to be a second, or the friendly amendment drops.
I'll second that friendly amendment.
There is a second to the friendly amendment, whereas that we move it to full council, and instead of 3 months, there's 6 months for exception of fees to the Zone 3. Councilperson Roman.
I think this is gonna take a lot longer than 6 months, 3 to 6 months for people to, you know, for us to get the word out there, and if we're encouraging this, I'm saying, why even charge for residential? And let's just get rid of the fee for residential. Let's encourage that we move forward with making it easier for residents to go solar and for, you know, for us to start becoming, encouraging a green city, a green village.
But T3, Zone 3 is residential.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so that's why there's a 6 months, there's a 6 months
Right,
of
what
no
I'm
fee.
saying is that 6 months is not long enough, that this is a program that we're going out there, we're pushing. I would like to see that just removed for the residential.
I have a question. So I'm a believer that if there's proper education and proper dissemination of information, and when you say, for lack of a better word, free, I think the time frame, I think most people will probably act in the time frame. Is it an opportunity to re-review it after 6 months? I think perpetually free, I'm not sure. I mean, that's my opinion, but there's 5 of us up here. Before you say something, is there an opportunity to revise it in 6 months?
We can always revise it.
Okay.
We can always bring it back to
Okay,
council.
Councilperson Norman.
Are there any costs to the village regarding this in terms of,
Is there any cost to the village?
like the applications?
The revision, but the application typically, it goes directly to building, doesn't require really zoning other than a quick look at which way this thing is facing. The cost is probably minimal because it doesn't require more than 10, 15 minutes to review, because this is pretty, pretty standard.
We're probably sometimes confusing them.
So I'm sorry, to rephrase, it costs the village, the consultants to review applications. That's all it costs the village.
Yeah, there's always a minor cost to everything, yeah.
So I would agree that permanent fee removal would probably not be ideal, but it I mean, in terms of variables, we could even have it where it would be an annual period, right? An annual 3-month period, or each year this comes around. So at each year, there's a new opportunity for residents to take advantage. Additionally, able to promote it, you know, as an annual event, maybe put like a 5-year timeline on that and see how far we can get.
Okay, there's a friendly amendment from 3 to 6 months. I actually think that, yeah, I think if we make it perpetually, people are inclined to maybe not do it. I think they're like, oh, yeah, I'll do it, you know, use the money for something else. But Vice Mayor Nickerson, before I say anything, Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we do something like what Councilperson Urban just said, if we bring it back annually or something like that, we'll also, that way, be able to include new residents who come in, who may not have been here for that first, 6 or months, but I'm also inclined maybe to, to kind of find like a more of a middle point with Councilperson Roman. Maybe we should do the first one like 9 months or a year. 9 months or a year, and then that second year, you maybe do like a 3-month period, like maybe like 3 quarters into that second year, 3-month period.
So let's think of something for a second. Okay. I think we're being incredibly generous at 6 months. Because while you're saying that it doesn't cost anything, there's a cost for everybody's time. Raul does not come here and not charge anything. There's a cost to absolutely everything we do, and it's on the invoices. So while I'd like to say free for all, I don't think that really even sells the program, because then they're like, well, why is this free? There must be something wrong. I really do like the idea of let's do an introductory 6 months, to what you said, which is a friendly amendment. And then after the 6 months, I think that's a great point. What you said and what you've said is, hey, let's have it annually, because there might be some new residents. And that kind of ties into ongoing. So it's not 365 days of the year, every single year, but an introductory 6 months. And then annually it'll be looked at where maybe we do it for 90 days. Maybe we do it when residents, we get our tax money in the beginning of the year, right? People are more inclined to spend a little bit of money. So maybe that's the time that the village takes a look at it. I think that kind of accommodates a little bit of everything that we want here. How does that sound?
Well, if I can,
Yes,
give my personal experience, just so that, it took my wife and I about 2 months to discuss it. Then it took about a month to get someone to our house to take measurements. It took about 2 to 3 months to figure out how to finance it, even though there's a great program called Y Green.
Yep. And we
So that already puts you to about 6 months.
okay.
And we have a pretty good marriage, so it took only 2 months. So it
Well,
really
she was
depends on-
pregnant. Give her a moment here. She was pregnant.
So from an application standpoint, it takes time for a family to make that
Yeah.
decision.
You know, yeah, right.
So they
6
would-
months is good. 3 months probably wasn't realistic.
And then, you know, to get the drawings and the application, so, and by the way, it's not that it's free, because you're paying for it. I mean, you're not paying for the village, but you're paying for the panels, you're
Yeah.
paying for the expert.
It's an incentive. It's an incentive. It's an incentive that we're providing to the residents.
My recommendation to you is that you keep it to a year. It's a year. I'd be surprised if you have more than a handful of applications, sadly, but it's true. And, you know, maybe next year you can decide, you know, you have you know, the applications that come at a certain time, and people can prepare to.
So
that's what
you
permit
recommend our
is.
introductory to do it for 12 months, and then thereafter review it for whatever that may look like?
I'd be surprised if you, I may be wrong, but I'd be surprised if you get
12 months?
more than a handful.
Well, I need a friendly amendment to the friendly amendment. I need a friendly motion to that. I need okay, I will make a friendly motion to the current motion, which would state,
If I can help,
oh yeah, that would be great.
just withdraw the original motion. and just
That's
start-
even a better idea. Thank you, Attorney Powell. Okay, I'm going to withdraw my motion. Is there a second?
Just a second to
Is there a second? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
withdraw
Okay.
your motion.
All right, let's get a motion. Would anybody like to start with this, council?
Go ahead.
Councilperson Urban, you do it. Hey, you be your first one.
I'll make a motion to bring to the full council consideration for removal of fees regarding solar panel installation for a period of 1 year.
And the Salzman application to move forward as well.
And for the Soul Start application to move forward, yes, to full council, yes.
Attorney Powell, you got that, right? Because you're writing that ordinance. Okay, let's be clear. Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilperson Roman. Madam Clerk, I need a roll call.
No, let me say, no, it's not about that. No, this might be, when we take this to full council, are these going to be 2 different agenda items? Is it the Soul Smart application and then the waiving of the fees, or are we going to bunch these into one? Madam, Mr. Attorney.
It would be
So I don't know if we
two,
have
it would
two
be
motions.
two, you'd be moving forward with this sole spot application, and waiving the fees would just simply be a resolution.
Okay.
So is that motion a good enough for
Yes,
both?
of course.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, roll call.
Roll call, Councilperson Urban,
Yes.
Councilperson Roman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson,
Yes.
Mayor Cubillos.
Yes, sorry.
Motion passes 4-0.
All right, talk about building consensus. Okay, very good, very, very good. Let's move to F5, Comprehensive Development Master Plan Evaluation and Appraisal. I want to thank you all for being there. That was for June 13th, right? Okay, you want to give us an update on that? Just posted the pictures on Instagram. You guys look great. Thank you, Madam Mayor. You all look great in those pictures. Oh, what did I call you? Mayor. You know. All the F's.
Yes, Camila Salas, the survey design, the comprehensive development master plan evaluation and appraisal is moving forward with the continuing public engagement. We held a workshop on June 13th, and there will be a second workshop on Saturday, September 7th at 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
It's at 1 p.m.
I want to reiterate this. So we have our second comprehensive workshop on Saturday at 1 o'clock, September 7th. We encourage all residents to be there. The camera's not facing you though. Encourage all residents to be there.
Yes, we encourage everyone to be there because it's, the comprehensive plan is the vision for Portal. And we want to hear from everyone who lives here and everyone who has been living here for many years. We learned of some residents who have been here for 30 years or more, and they're the ones who can help provide input and help dictate what these amendments will look like when we transmit to the state and update the plan for 2020. Do you have any questions about the comprehensive plan or this process?
I don't have any questions. I just want to reiterate on the camera again that the second workshop is Saturday, September 7th at 1 o'clock. We encourage all residents, if you can. We know it's a long weekend, so please be here. It's an important time to really have input on the future of the village. Do I have any questions from the council for Camila?
No, ma'am, Mayor, oh, sorry about that, Councilman. Go ahead.
No, I called on you. I'll call her next.
Okay.
Vice President Christian, one at a time.
Earlier, we mentioned you wanted to come back to the fence. Was that now?
Architecture pattern book is the next one.
Oh, it's the next one.
Any other questions? No? Councilperson Roman?
Is it too much to ask, because I didn't come to that workshop and I'm not going to be able to come to the next one. Is it too much to ask? I mean, I do have the documents, I can't read them. But is it too much to ask for a short recap of major changes?
Would you like me to ask one question?
We can meet with you, with everyone of the council members individually to discuss these amendments and changes. The amendments are, they're required
Because
by.
I'm sure there's people that aren't going to be able to make it. I was just
Yes.
wondering if we should put it on.
And there's also a survey for anyone who can't make it to provide input on all the topics. To
Oh, you do
that
have
end.
a survey?
There is a survey.
Yeah, keep in mind that when this town halls are done, there's gonna be a comprehensive, probably town hall on the results, or it's gonna be at a P and Z meeting, all the results. Along there has been a survey,
There
yes.
will be, after the workshop, we will, based on input from the residents and what we've gathered, we will propose amendments, and yes, we need to present them at planning and zoning committee and council, transmit to the state. They will have comments as well, and then we need to present one more time to committee and council twice. So this is a long process of public engagement, and there will definitely be more opportunities. And we are more than happy and available to meet on an individual basis to discuss these as well. And in order to provide input, if you're not able to make it to a workshop, I'm just going to reiterate the survey, which includes all of the topics. And
So when is that survey going to come out?
the survey is up.
It's up already? It's on the
Yes,
website?
It's on elportal.preservia.com.
Okay.
And all the information about the comprehensive plan is on that website too.
Okay. And have we notified our residents that there's a survey for those that cannot attend the workshops?
It was on the email blast.
It was?
It's a
I was just asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in the next email blast, maybe we'll put it on top, but it's on there. And I think after the fence town hall, that's something that we said that every town hall that has to do with P and Z that they're part of, they're gonna convert, there's gonna be a survey to get an input for those over there and those that are not making.
Yeah, because we didn't have a lot of responses to the first survey until there was an actual email sent out just for that survey. So, you can't assume that people they don't really read. If you want people to participate in the survey, it needs to be, something that's really addressed.
You're right, it was after that.
It was after that email blast
We
that-
had 71.
Correct, yeah.
respondents.
Because prior to that, we had like 7.
If there can be additional email blast.
Okay,
Appreciate
yeah, that's my
this.
recommendation.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We are moving on to F6, which is the architecture pattern book.
So I have no material, as you know. This is a request that came up during one of our meetings. If you'd like, you can explain, or I can at least
Well,
establish.
I was, the manager and I, we've been meeting with the Preservia team on a few projects, because before it actually gets here, there's just so many underlying factors, and I don't know if you've all seen the home that's being built on 87th Street. There's gonna be probably future homes that are gonna be coming before the board, and there's nothing in our current guidelines that kind of can mitigate people coming in and creating containers and boxes and a design that looks futuristic. And you know, Ben Fernandez, the attorney who's still here from Marcella, said something that I want to kind of reiterate, and that is, you know, Coconut Grove used to be great, right? Well, it's not so great because things weren't put in place to mitigate all of that. And I think that if we don't start thinking along those lines, then we're going to be that next, because you're right. Why is Marcella putting a yoga studio here? Why is a sanctuary want to develop here? Why is there a potential little, I'm not going to say what could be coming up in Northeast 2nd Avenue right now, but, you know, people are coming here because, hey, guess what? For a really long time, we've been the best kept secret. But that best kept secret is sort of, you know, it's out there a little bit more. That little quiet haven is not the little quiet haven because it's affordable to be here now. Taxes are reasonable. And hey, I want to be the first yoga studio in El Portal. I want to be the first restaurant in El Portal. Well, that's great, but we've got to put things in place with homes as well, because I'm looking at some of the renderings of future homes that want to be here, and it doesn't fit our style and our culture and who we are. And I kind of like who we are. You know, I like driving around and it looking different. Every home looks old, and it just, I like that feel, and I think our residents too. So while we approved a home to go on 87th Street, and it's there now, but I drive down 87th Street, and when I look at it, I often ask myself, okay, lessons learned. So I mentioned to Juan, what can we do? And he says, Mayor, there's nothing in your code that dictates what a home, it dictates setback, it dictates, you know, fences working on, but architectural style in terms of windows and all, there's none of that. So I said, please, you know, bring to the board, bring to the council, the committee, what that would entail, and that's why it's on there right now. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about, what that architectural pattern book would mean for us, and I'd like you all to behoove and listen to see if something you all would be interested in considering moving forward.
So in addition to that, that was exactly what we talked about. In addition to that, I could add that there's many ways to control, to manage the range of applications that we may have in the future. And as the mayor stated, we are getting more and more applications as time goes by. I remember when we first started, we rarely got an application, you know, even for it was our session. But more than anything, so there's many ways of doing this. What I propose to the mayor is an architectural guideline, which is no more than a guideline. Okay? It's not law, but it's a guideline. The reason why it's important, even if it's not law, is that you can adopt it as a guideline. And the best use for this guideline is that it provides a baseline for you to make a decision with something that you have adopted. So it allows you as an elected body to have a document that gives you the tools and the language in order to, in a fair and equitable way, decide whether or not an application is meritable to the building and whatnot. Currently, as you know, as you stated, there's no actual guideline or architectural standards. There's no board of architects like other municipalities in Miami-Dade County have. I think that would be a little too much. The village, I don't think, needs that right now, and probably would be expensive. So this guideline should be, in my opinion, and I have seen very extensive guidelines, but it should be no more than a 15 to 20 page document that looks at, and I think this is important to state, it looks at what the El Portal has right now, what it values as its identity. To name one, Sherwood Forest and the kind of architecture that you have there, I think that's a good historic element that we could hold on to, and use those architectural elements to create a pattern book that provides guidance for what kind of windows, how many, what spacing, what kind of doors. We could even go as far as to propose colors. So villages do, I don't know, that would be something that, so this process is very simple, the creation of a guideline. It really shouldn't take very long. It requires a bit of analysis of what you have. It's not a very large village, so it won't take too long. The only more, I guess, involved element to this would be to open it up to the residents to make sure that they have a say. But I would leave that after we have done our research so that we don't come empty-handed and everybody can and really direct this into, this is who we are, not necessarily this is what we could become, but really what is the identity today? As you said, you like it here. So let's start out from the starting point, bring it to the table, I would do one workshop, I don't think we need any more. Hopefully we can get some residents out. And then put a 15 to 20 page document that you can have as a cheat sheet. Really, that's what it is. And it allows us also to communicate with the residents. This is what the council has adopted, what the village agreed upon, and so your windows don't match. Or again, if you choose to put color in there, you know, this red is a little too bright, you should look at these Pantone colors. Or this is how hip roofs are. We can talk about materials, and going back to the initial thought that you asked, the fences. The fences is also part of an architectural element that sometimes makes it to on a form-based code, but sometimes it's left out, especially material and form shapes for a architectural guideline. So that's my recommendation, if it is that we want to have a document that we can use as a discussion tool.
How long, I'll open up for questions, how long will it take for your staff to create something like that? So it's really in terms of planning, like, would it be at the next, probably not the next P&Z, because we meet in September, but what are you thinking? Like, how long would it take to create?
I talked to Megan, who is our resident historian, and she said that within a week we could gather enough information about the Sherwood Forest. Week and a half, right? Camila is also working on this legislation. That would allow us to start pulling away or dissecting, let's say, the buildings that are most salient. Put together a presentation, do a workshop. I think within a couple of months we could probably have everything done in 3 months. I'm not talking about working full time. I'm talking about putting together the material, a couple of weeks, then the workshop. You know.
So maybe the November P&Z meeting.
I think so. I really hope, because we don't have the bandwidth either. I really don't want to spend much time on it. I know budget is tight.
Yeah.
So I want to make it as simple as possible.
Okay.
Again, to the extent that we can. If the residents then start asking for, you know, a 50-page document with, you know, mullions and details of doorknobs, then it's going to be a little bit more complicated. But I don't think we need to go that far. I don't think the village is about their doorknobs. It's about our fences, it's about our roofs, it's about our windows. So that's what I'm thinking.
I'd like to, I've opened it up to the council. If you have any questions or about this, Councilperson Roman.
I'm 100% on this. I think that we should definitely create this. I wish we had it when we passed that project on 87th Street. I did not like that project from the beginning. The only reason I changed my mind and I voted yes is because there was a petition from all the residents that live, the neighbors on that street, saying that they wanted it. So that's why it got my vote. But I think that this is extremely important. I purchased my home, it was built in 1926. So, you know, I moved here because I don't like cookie cutter and because of the distinct of the village, you know, and so I like to keep it the way it is.
The guidelines can also look at a street length. It's not just about a building, but it could potentially say, if the house next door looks like this, your house should look like that, so that there's no copy paste, which is one of the applications that I think was not approved. That there were 2 houses in a lot, remember that? So it could, that guideline doesn't have to be restricted to a single building, but also look at the context and see how your new building fits within that context, which I think is also important.
Vice Mayor, did you have something? I heard you say something.
Yeah, but I don't.
Everybody's going to have a turn.
Thank you.
Everybody say
Let's take Councilperson Roman. I just wanted to say that, you know, I kind of, you know, piggyback on what Councilperson Roman was saying about just how important this is. You know, anybody who knows me knows, you know, all my degrees are in like history and stuff like that. And just just historically, this is extremely important. I think this is like a moment in time where, 60, 70, 80 years from now, those residents of El Portal will be glad what we're doing here today. Because when you think about, you guys know I went to school in Egypt, I went to school in Syria, and you just have, so many areas of those countries that, they didn't change the architecture, from, 1,000 years ago and things like that, and it's just so rich, and you come to appreciate things like that. Even in this country, like this great country of ours, if you drive through this great country and you drive through some like small towns that look like they're from like, the American Revolution time frame, like it makes you feel good, you get a real rich sense of that. And I think El Portal, this is wonderful what we're doing, and as all around us in big cities and areas around us, as the future comes and things change and things alternate, I think if we keep this and people are able to look back at this community 100 years from now, 120 years from now, and we still look like this, I think it's a wonderful thing we're doing right now.
Councilperson Bowman.
I agree with what Mr. Peterson is saying. I think even in 30 years, if we can hold on to what we have right now, we'll see that we'll be starkly unique compared to the surrounding areas. So, one of my favorite things about Marcella's plan, for example, was that even with an addition, they're still incorporating existing architecture, which is phenomenal. So that I was super glad to hear that. And so I'm not in favor of limiting things like colors of houses. Green is the least favorite color. Like I don't know why anybody paints their house green. Mine's greenish, but it's a light green, right? It's yellow. So
Did you paint it or did you get it like that?
I got it like that.
Oh, yeah.
But I truly believe it's not within my rights necessarily to dictate to someone else what color their house is, right? However, when it comes to the architecture and the pattern of things and the way that that appearance is, I think it's incredibly important. So I wouldn't be entirely opposed to banning something like modern architecture. However, I would want to see imagination and creativity incorporated so that it would fit in with what we have in the village. So I agree that even just in 30 years, if we can hold on to what this is right now, we'll find ourselves out completely unique compared to everything else around us.
I'd like to clarify, totally with you. I'd like to clarify that this is not a style book. It's a pattern book. So we're not precluding anyone from a modern house to come here. Now, that modern house should have windows of a certain dimension and proportion. It should have windows facing the street. It should have doors that are visible from the street because, especially residential buildings without doors are really not welcoming. So the pattern will allow for different styles to happen within Portal, but with certain guidelines that will allow for everything to sort of fit within a context. We can do a style. We can talk about style if you'd like, but I would first look at the pattern and see if that allows for enough guidance. And remember, it's guidance. We're not stopping anybody from building anything.
So in that spirit, as a further, not to muddy the waters here, but for my own clarification, in terms of comprehensive plan versus zoning, right? When it comes to something like garage conversions, is that something that's addressed in a comprehensive plan, or is it something that's exclusive simply to zoning and coding?
Yeah, that's zoning.
Okay.
It would,
Nothing to do necessarily with the comprehensive plan.
So if you think about the structure of the comprehensive plan, the CDMP, it gives you goals and objectives.
Okay.
Zoning will give you rules and regulations.
Okay.
The pattern book will give you guidance.
Very good.
So I think that's the structure. If I, you have to
That helps.
do with the attorney, but have a different.
Yeah, let's see.
I think that's the structure of importance.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you.
Well said. So you all are in agreement with an architectural guidance book?
Yes.
I'm going to put that on the
Yeah.
tracker.
So we'll move forward
Yes,
with this.
thank you. I think it's
And we'll
fantastic.
keep you informed as the work
Very
progresses.
excited. Thank
I'd
you.
like to mention on that note, because I think it's important, We're doing some historic surveys in other neighborhoods in Miami with a grant from state, no cost of the neighborhoods. I hadn't thought about it. I think I mentioned it to Ruben a while back. I'm going to look if state would like to look at Sherwood Forest and El Portal as a potential survey that they, and the survey doesn't stop anybody from doing anything. It's just an understanding of what, actually Camila's working on it very hard. It gives you a survey of the buildings that you have here. It gives you a history of who lived where, and who built them, what architect, things like that, which I think it's a nice thing to have.
So how about on that note, we can add, if possible, how and who designated as a bird sanctuary?
That can be a part of the study. And just think, and I'm not proposing anything to this council, I'm just telling you that I'm going to, because, we're actually doing this without telling the city of Miami that we're doing it for several neighborhoods in Miami, because it doesn't have
Or
anything to
on
do with
camera,
them.
right?
And it doesn't, so I just thought that I'd mention since it's part of,
Secret of folks.
ideally we would have this kind of survey before we would have a pattern book. They can be working parallel, but I will look into
Okay.
whether or not the state is there, if be interested, because this is a very unique neighborhood. It has some good historic character.
Characters.
That too.
Okay. Okay, with that said, I'm gonna go through the tracker report. Eunice, the P and Z tracker report is one I've not updated. I've been doing pencil Nolan, and either I'll give you a copy or I'll give it to you tomorrow, but I kind of want to bring it up to where it should be at today. So item number 1 is Pleasurbia. It's a little sort of generic, but I'm going to leave that there for purposes because you are P and Z, right? Okay. But let's go to number 2, which is the redevelopment of the trailer park. I just want the committee to know that the mayor, that's me, the manager and I have been in constant contact with them. It's not where they used to be, where they were, not making themselves available. It's really all the opposite now. They're making themselves much more available. They're being very proactive. They're very enthusiastic. I think they've only met with Pleasurbia, I think once, or maybe they've called you twice. But they've called us a little more. We're supposed to be meeting with them again in another 2 weeks. They're supposed to disclose what architecture firm they're going to have hired by that point. Juan, you look so thrilled. But they've not given us any reason not to believe that they're not going to do anything. They've not given us any reason to believe that they're going to flip or sell it. They have said, I'm going on the record, they have said to us that if they are, they sincerely will let us know. But that's not where they're at. Clearly, that is a project that's going to be a multifaceted project with many phases. One of the preliminary phases that they had to do was clean it all out and designate a brownfield, and that took a little bit of a process. But I believe that is completed, and I think there was a letter that was drafted a few months ago to finalize that whole component of it. So I just want that to go on the tracking report because that is something that is ongoing, and we need to be mindful and always stay on top of that. So number 2 is going to be the redevelopment of the trailer park, and I'll add some notes so that it goes in the tracking report. Number 3, it says development impact fees. I'm going to strike that, and I'm going to replace that with the annexed area. The working name for the annexed area is the Cavista. The Cavista means northern village, and it's a Tequesta Indian word. I believe it's a working name. I don't think they have confirmed that that's the name, but I want the committee to know that that is definitely have legs on it. The project is moving forward. Juan, the attorney, myself, the manager, her finance department, we've met regularly, we've talked regularly. It takes a lot of layers of work, of things that must get done before it comes to the committee to ensure that we're in compliance with legality as far as any development agreement or impact fees. We can't come here and agree on anything without having the El Portal's best interest at first done. So I think we're in the final stages of hopefully coming up with an agreement with them. I really hope that there will be I really hope that they will come to the committee before this year comes to an end. I definitely foresee that, even if I have to request a special P&Z meeting. And they will be doing a town hall. So it's not like everything we're doing is a secret. There's some meetings that we must have not here, that we're having, they are gonna come to the committee, and then there is going to be a town hall so that the residents can input, just like the sanctuary did, okay? So I just want to replace number 3. I want to replace number 3, that we can call it Cavista, the Cavista, and then it's gonna be the annex area, and underneath it I'll put 83rd and 84th Street.
How do you spell Cavista?
Kavista. So then on number 4 is the sanctuary. The sanctuary, as we all know, is located on Northeast 2nd Avenue. The manager and I received somewhat good news that the Miami-Dade County Department of Health finally approved their permits for the septic design. However, their impact fees that's paid to the county, not to El Portal, was doubled. So now they're working on that. Seth is out of the country. Seth is one of the owners. Seth is out of the country. So Sam is working on that, and then their in-house assistant, I believe, is Sasha. You know, the conversation that I had with Juan and briefly with Norman and even with the manager is, you know, it really is a conversation when the impact fees is paid to the county. Because I'm trying to figure out what impact the county's getting, but that's a whole other conversation that we will have with the county. Okay. So that's sanctuary. So it's very good news. And I get a lot of texts from residents. I really wanted to put that on the record that, you know, while they may not see anything, there's a lot of work that's being done in the background to try to push these projects forward. So that's number 4. Parking on the swale, didn't we move that to code enforcement, or did we leave that here? What I asked Juan when we met with Juan on Tuesday was, you know, Juan said to me, Mayor, we have a list of things that we haven't finished. And I said, please email me what that list is and by priority. Because I know we start working on different projects and then we just sort of leave one behind. And I don't think that we should be doing that. And we did agree that we would focus on 5 areas of most residents that make the most, that are occurring citations, right? So I think it was fences that we focused on, the swales and roofs. So right now we're on fences. But what I've now added, and I think should be number 5 instead of the parking and swale, is the architectural pattern book. Because I think that needs to take precedence as we move forward, because a lot of things are going to be coming down the pipeline, and I think this really needs to be on there as far as, hey, we know fences are important, and hey, we know swales are important, but let's work on the architecture, which is sort of, as you said, a guideline, and then we'll put the other things in place. So I'd like to add architecture pattern book on there. The next one, number 6, I want to add is a comprehensive master plan. And one of the reasons why I want to have this on there is because when residents get this, they will know exactly what we're working on in P&Z. It's not just Placervia. Okay, so I have to update this, which I know I have not. So number 6 is going to be comprehensive master plan, and then a status, I'm going to put that the 2 town halls that we're going to have, and then what the follow-up is going to be after that. Well, I ask you, Juan, what have I missed in P&Z that should go in this tracking report that I'd like to track what we're working on, so we don't, sort of priorities?
I think that you've covered the priorities. I wanted to recommend that given that there's a number of residents that are interested in the fence issue, that we consider passing P&Z, the fences as recommended based on the input that we got from the residents. The architectural pattern book can make an amendment to that if approved. And then we can, look, at the end of the day, the architectural pattern book really should adopt whatever fence type and location and everything else that we have heard from the residents. I just don't want, I wouldn't want the residents to feel that we are kicking the ball down the road on the fence issue. I have a feeling that we're going to get some residents upset if we do.
No, I'm going to go back to item number 2. I'd like to remove the fence out of committee so that when ready to bring up the ordinance, it's 2 readings anyway.
Yeah.
So by the time the second reading may happen, maybe the guideline will be there.
That would be ideal.
Yes.
But again, my recommendation would be that we pass the fence at P&Z today, of course, if you want to. But
Well, we've done the town hall, we've done the survey, we've done, you know.
So it's moving forward, and then the architectural guidelines will adopt that fence ordinance as part of the architectural guidelines, because really in the architectural guidelines, we're not gonna have to review the fence anymore. We already have.
So those items on the tracking report is what we're tracking right now that we're working on, so we're good with that, right? Okay, great. I will give this to you, Denise, okay? Either you can make a copy now, or else someone type it up, I just give you a copy now. With that said, and on the recommendation, which I completely agree, let's go real quick back to F2. We've had a town hall, Serbia did the survey, and there is a draft ordinance for a fence change, a fence recommendation. I'd like to ask if there's a motion to move the fence discussion out to the full council with an ordinance based on the recommendation, the ordinance written by the attorney with the recommendations of Serbia.
Do you like to read it?
No, that's fine.
No, I want to know if there's a motion to move this to full council.
I would make a motion to move the amendments to the fence coding to full council based on Serbia's recommendations and data collected through the survey.
Okay, there's a motion made by Councilperson Urban. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Madam Mayor.
Okay, there's a motion made by Councilperson Urban with a second by Vice Mayor Nickerson. Attorney Powell, that's sufficient?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll come in September, first week.
Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Roll call, Councilperson Urban.
Yes.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Mayor Cubillos.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, thank you for reminding me, Juan. With that said, anybody good in welfare? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting has been adjourned motion been made by Councilperson Roman, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilperson Urban, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the P and Z Committee meeting ends at 8:27 p.m. Thank you.